their babies. Babies can't talk. Now, however absurd or juvenile this discussion may seem at times, history also shows that for many political leaders, mockery can be more upsetting than traditional policy criticism. You know, journalist Victor Navasky wrote a whole book documenting how political cartoonists are so influential because they push the boundaries of polite criticism, reporting that Hitler was so incensed about cartoons lampooning him, he even secretly commissioned a book of cartoons in response. Francis King Philippe had an artist imprisoned for drawing pictures that depicted him as, yes, a pear. So are the Brits onto something? We turn to our panel. Tony Schwartz, CEO of the Energy Project, Vox Media's Liz Plank, who you might have heard laughing in the background, and Mike Lupica, columnist for the New York Daily News. Starting with Donald Trump, the person. Will not this, not the baby blimp, will the baby blimp, do you think, upset him?
Yes, because Donald Trump is obsessed with being as a big man and a big leader, and to a certain extent it worked. You know, I talked to a lot of Trump supporters during the campaign who told me that they would vote for Donald Trump because he was a real man and he was a tough leader. But of course, Donald Trump is not necessarily the poster boy for a tough leader. He's the poster boy for fragile masculinity. A man who is comfortable with himself does not need to throw himself rallies.
You're saying something very important, that you think this actually cuts deep into his self-perception of the kind of tough, masculine person he wants to be.
Absolutely. And we spent a lot of time during the campaign talking about the way that he attacked, you know, had gendered insults for women, Carly Fiorina in her face, but we didn't really talk about the gendered insults towards other men. Little Marco, crying Chuck now as a president going after Chuck Schumer for crying. These things that are emasculating or not seen as masculine, he really goes after other men for not doing. So obviously it's something that he's afraid that's in himself and will be exposed with the blimp and the baby.
And Mike, I know you're just back from the UK. Your view?
Yeah, I was amazed to see Woody Johnson, who apparently is as good at ambassadoring as he was at owning the New York Jets. It doesn't reflect the views of the people he's talked to. Well, who's he talking to? Because everywhere I went in London for a week, when they weren't talking about the World Cup, they were talking about the political situation in our country. And all I could say was, we understand we have a problem. We're trying to correct it. It's going to take some time, but please don't blame me. I mean, blame Comey or blame Hillary or blame that thug Putin. But he is extremely unpopular in that country, and you're going to see it in these protests. And you know that when he looks up in the sky and sees the baby blimp, he'll be thinking of T-Pain saying he wishes he could fly away.
Wow. Mike Lupica came prepared. I think anyone who looks up in the sky, you don't have to be president. I think if you look up in the sky and you happen to see your likeness in a giant diaper-clad baby, it's going to have some effect on you, which is why there's a psychological profile to this. Donald Trump himself, though, has talked about how he also loves babies, and so we cover all sides of this story. I want to show, here's Donald Trump talking about babies.
Don't worry about that baby. I love babies. So I love babies. I hear that baby crying. I like it. What a baby. What a beautiful baby. Don't worry. Don't worry. The mom's running around like, don't worry about it, you know. It's young and beautiful and healthy, and that's what we want.
Tony.
Well, first of all, 5 seconds later in that clip, he says, get that baby out of here. So I can tell you, having spent time around him when he had little children, that he has less than zero interest in children, and so that's nonsense. Are you asking me about the blimp? I'm depressed if you are. I mean, who cares?
Let me ask you this, because you were here as a opposing voice.
Opposed to the blimp?
Yeah, a lot of people have seen this as a way to troll him. There was a long-running debate, and we've talked about it before on the show. How do you deal with someone who dominates attention in such a juvenile way? But I happen to know that you don't think this is the best way to protest him.
No, I mean, listen, I'm not, in any significant way against it. I just think it's irrelevant and it won't do anything. And the idea of getting under his skin is not significant. Who cares if we get under his skin? Right. What we want to do is get under his presidency and lift him out of it. I've been thinking a lot lately about the fact that he has changed this debate around him and put it on his terms. And it's always being dragged down. Lowest common denominator, and I don't think we win. Those of us who oppose and resist him don't win by playing the game at his level. Listen, what was clear today more than it's ever been is that the game here is democracy, the future of this country, who it is we want to be, who we want to be represented by. It's really big issues, and they are positive, meaning whatever doubts people have about what this country is, we don't want to be under an authoritarian. Maybe 30% of the country actually does, but 70% of the country does not want to live under an authoritarian. And if we can, for example, what's a good protest? A good protest is to go to the incredibly small percentage, or to go to the percentage, the high percentage of young people who don't vote and get them to vote. It's not important who is for Trump. It's important who is against Trump, that they show up at the polls and actually register that.
I mean, I think what Tony's saying, Liz, is nap time is over.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I didn't want to take it too seriously.
No, but here's the thing.
Well, speak to that, because Elizabeth Warren talked about Trump's tiny hands, and then people said, is that really the way to go at it? I mean, this is something that the resistance has not yet fully figured out.
I agree.
What level you play.
No, I get all that. And there was a famous old boxing promoter in Boston named Suitcase Sam Silverman who used to say every knock is a boost, okay? And I think Trump operates on that principle. But you have to admit, just even though you can't use irony in an underdeveloped country, okay, there is some irony here in a guy who mocks everybody and everything getting made fun of. And Tony, you better than anybody know how thin-skinned he is.
Yeah.
I do. I just have come to a point where, you know, here's the thing. I gave the Hillary campaign during the pre-election a series of things that I thought would set Trump off during the debates. Right. She used every single one of them, and in every single case it set him off. Did it actually redound in a positive way to Hillary? No, it probably didn't. And it turned out, as we now know, that those people who support Trump more when you are more critical of him, and less, or at least more, when you're more critical of him.
Liz?
Yeah, well, I think that he also really uses this idea that he's a respected leader abroad. And this will disrupt that idea and might even mess with him, not just on a personal level, but mess on this image that he has and this obsession with control, which, you know, even when he went to North Korea, he had like a trailer video about his, trip there. And in every other, even the way that he announces, he has this obsessive desire for control, and to disrupt that, I think it is important.
Well, let's be clear. He is not respected abroad. The only places he's respected are Saudi Arabia and Russia.
But do Trump supporters know that? I don't think that they do.
You know, because we are so closeted in what we read from both sides that they don't. But what I believe is that we are far better off making the case for what we want to see and what does resonate with the vast majority of America than we are, putting up blimps.
I mean, what I'm hearing is it can be great, fun, and even effective to roast him, and the counter-argument being catharsis is not an electoral strategy.
No, I mean, if catharsis is emotionally refueling and renewing for the resistance, God bless. But yes, we have a bigger challenge at hand, which is to bring to people's attention that this is a person who threatens in the fundamental way the America we want to live in.
You said a bigger challenge at hand, bigger than a baby.
Even bigger than a baby.
Even bigger than a baby.
Even bigger than a baby.
Do you think,
I gotta go.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Where are you going?
Colloquialism. Well, I gotta go so we can come back.
That blimp is so lifelike. You know, it's just
put like register to vote in the back, you know, so it's useful.
Well, that's the side by side. Tony.